This is episode 3 of the Money Musician podcast, where we talk about everything gigging, performance, music theory, everything. So today, I got my buddy here. He's a full-time musician, professional musician, plays bass, does backup harmonies. It's my good buddy, J Boynton.
Hey.
Did I get that right?
You
Boynton?
did. Nailed it.
Cool. Right on. So, hey, cheers.
Cheers, man. Kombuchas.
Good to have you here.
Man, good to be here.
Gotta rock the kombuchas.
Exactly. I know you're more healthy.
Is that why you bought them?
Yeah.
That's thoughtful, thanks.
I'm like, bro, if I bring Corona, I don't think Miles is going to drink it.
I'll drink it.
Oh, yeah?
So how long have you been gigging, and like where did it start? Like how did you start getting into all this?
I think I started playing like right around 14 was my first gig out here. It was Jillian's at Fremont Street. It was kind of a crazy deal. I was in this like School of Rock kind of thing, and they built this Fremont Street. It was like pretty cool. And then I did a couple gigs there, and then I kind of realized I didn't need to be in School of Rock anymore. I could just kind of book shows myself.
Yeah.
And so I kind of took the band and then started just booking my own stuff.
So that was like junior high, right?
Yeah, middle school.
Or like, beginning of high school.
Yeah.
Dang, you got started like real early doing gigs.
Oh, yeah, I've been out here forever, man.
Dang, that's cool. So like, what is it? Were you like nervous to do that? Like just to play at that age?
Oh, heck yeah, man.
Like you were doing bass? Or what?
So back then I was actually, I was writing, I was the lead guitar player and singer back then.
Oh, okay, so it was an original band.
Yeah, it was original.
Okay.
And it was like, I was kind of teaching everyone their instruments. We were all young. It was crazy, bro.
Dang, that's wild.
Garage band, but yeah.
And that's when you first started like writing songs and like just playing in front of people.
Yeah, pretty much. That's my favorite thing is writing. So that was a nice outlet.
And then, dang, that's super. I wish I did that in high school. I wish I started like playing in front of people.
Oh, it was fun. It's like it also sucks. Like you throw a big high school show and only a couple people show up, and you're like, oh fuck, I gotta go back to school the next day and see. How was your show? You wouldn't know.
And just a few people in math class like, I was there.
I know, right? Math class came in clutch. Thank you, guys.
That's cool. So that started all off. So, so then what next? Where did it go after that?
I pretty much I did my own bands from like 14 to 18, just writing everything, trying to grab musicians and weren't very serious about it and trying to keep going forward. I finally got my first like serious band at 18. There was this band out of Florida moving here, and I heard their music, and it was like fucking dubstep before like dubstep was happening, and they were doing it with rock music.
Yeah.
And so at the time, I never heard anything like that. So I moved heaven and earth to get in this fucking band as a rhythm guitar player because the singer was a badass lead and vocalist. So they really didn't need me. I just kind of like willed my way into the band.
You just wanted to be, yeah.
I learned all their songs on like every instrument. So at my audition, they finally gave me I got it.
Dang, that's cool. Yeah, that's so important too, is just to be like prepared for those auditions. Like,
oh yeah.
Like for anyone watching who like wants to get in bands or like just you've always been really good at that. Like the preparation and just being like knowing all the material, showing up on time, like just being ready. Cause then it's like, how do you not get hired? You know, if you're just like, if you knew all their songs and on all the instruments, and it's just like, how do they not have you in the band now? You know?
That was my mentality. I'm like, that's how I'm getting in.
And what kind of, so from like 14 to 18, that was like, what kind of music were you doing before you got into that? That was like all like, was it like punk rock metal stuff?
Yeah, pretty much. So my band was more like, I don't want to say like new metal because I wasn't like rapping or anything, but it kind of had that like heavier down-tuned guitars and like Seether, Seven Dust. Those were like my favorite bands, so I just kept trying to do that a lot.
Yeah, that was like the thing in that time. That was probably like I graduated 2008, so probably 2004, so early 2000s. That was like the vibe. And then, okay, so you went from that to the dubstep thing.
It was like an electronic rock band, pretty much. Like they only did the dubstep like a couple things. Like after the Skrillex thing blew up, and then Korn tried to be dubstep. Like it became cheesy, so we just totally stopped doing that. we just went more electronics. But yeah, man.
And that's and did you guys like play a lot of like local shows with that band, or what'd you do with that
So
band?
with the band was First Class Trash. That's where I did like a lot of the cool stuff I did like early. We opened for like P.O.D, Nonpoint, my favorite band, Saliva. We did Warped Tour. We did touring gigs.
Oh, so you guys did big shows.
We did cool shit, man. I got this because of that. I got a cool drumming gig with Street Drum Corp at well, now it's the Virgin Hotel, but when it was the Hard Rock.
Yeah.
And so I signed up for this random fucking percussion show. I was like barely a drummer, but I learned the material, you know.
Yeah.
So I begged my boss to get off work early so I could actually make like rehearsal for it before the show. I show up there. Shannon Larkin from Godsmack and Tommy Lee are the guest stars that night.
Oh, no
I didn't know that till I showed up like in my apron from work to this fucking place. And then yeah, man. So I guess that was most stuff I did First Class Trash.
Dang, that's crazy. And how was that like playing, just going from like your high school gigs and shows to that?
It was exactly what I wanted to do. It was
because it was like bigger stages, right?
Yeah.
And like maybe for like people who haven't played any bigger stages or anything, like what obviously like the monitors are better, like you just kind of get better treatment.
Oh, most definitely.
And like how was it opening up for P.O.D?
That was awesome.
Yeah.
The rest of the band was cool. Like the drummer, Wov, that guy is a freak of nature, bro. Because, you know, they were playing the tracks and stuff, but he refuses to wear in-ears. And they also weren't running a metronome feed through their monitors. So he had to hear the tracks and then just play along to them.
Oh, crazy.
Like, the balls on that guy.
I mean, yeah, just the chances of messing up live on like a big show like that. Oh, damn.
Dude, I mean, I feel like I've done a lot of metronome work. If you're just playing tracks without it, like trying to follow along when everything's loud, that's terrifying, man. And that's with in-ears.
Yeah, it's like for everyone who, for any drummers who like might not have tried in-ears yet or anything, explain to them how that works.
So usually I say nowadays, majority of bands are using tracks, like especially like touring signed bands.
Or
so,
a metronome.
Yeah. Yeah, so you usually wire both into the drummer at least. Like now, most of the band has it, but back when we were doing it, was just the drummer that had the tracks and the metronome, and he's kind of leading the whole deal.
Yeah, so like usually the drummer will have like his own mixer, and yeah, it'll be like the tempo will be going in the ears. You just wear like little earbuds, and then the tempo will be going in the ears.
Yeah,
and you have to stay on that. Because a lot of the times it's like it has like an intro and like a chorus part, and you have to stay on the structure of the song, especially if there's tracks going on with it, because you know certain instruments come in at certain points. This is making me burp.
Damn you, kombucha!
It's gonna be wild on the microphones. That's super cool.
But yeah. No, it's like with the tracks and anything, like the biggest thing I learned, it sounds like common sense, but it's not, is like the track isn't going to change. Like you have to follow along to that. And so it's like if anyone gets off and they can't find their place, like you're going to train wreck the song. So that's the one hard part with the tracks. Yeah. Especially if it's only the drummer has it and people can't understand why they're messing up. Like,
yeah,
it's crazy.
That's scary. Yeah.
Yeah. I've butchered a couple of those before. It's been a time or two.
Yeah, that's so. You played guitar and you sang. So you fronted a band, and then you were playing. What were you doing in the band with the P.O.D?
I was drums at that point. First Class Trash. I kind of bounced around to like everything, just whatever they needed.
just whatever.
They're like, I know you can play every instrument now, so you're the
one
drummer.
guy didn't show up, you just would take
Pretty much.
Thanks. So you're playing guitar, singing, drums. Then how did you get into bass? Were you playing bass at that time?
No.
Okay.
That was the only one I didn't really play. Now, I had a bass, and I still did learn the songs on bass, but like with a pick and the very bare minimum. Like,
So
that was
like a
definitely
guitar.
like the least focus.
Yeah, so you're playing it like a guitar.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Guitar player that played bass at that time.
Yeah, that's how we all start on bass.
Pretty much, bro.
And so how did you, did you, because you've been doing like bass gigs mostly now, right?
Yeah.
How did that lead into that?
So after the first class trash thing, I felt like we did a lot of cool stuff, but we kind of hit a, like, I don't know, kind of a ceiling. And I don't know, with like local bands out here, you kind of, sometimes it's hard to just break through that threshold. And so we kind of went as far as I thought we could. So I started kind of doing my own deal, getting into like production more so. But I was still serving part-time. And then Peter Love was was playing at my restaurant and doing loops and everything.
Oh, this was at what's it?
PBR Rock Bar.
PBR Rock Bar, yeah.
So everyone was telling me, he's like, that guy used to be in TV shows and he makes money. You should go talk to him. I'm like, I don't want to do covers. I do rock music.
Yeah.
Then eventually I'm like, all right, well, I do like making money. So I just went and approached him. I was like, hey, man, did you need a drummer? And he's like, well, right now I'm playing with like Mariah Carey's ex-drummer, like Chris something.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, well, I'm not as good as that guy. He's like, I need a bass player, though. Do you play bass? I'm like, yes, I do.
And like in your mind, did you like, were you confident about your bass playing?
No.
So you just said
no,
yes?
But I knew I could prepare enough to where I thought I would be okay.
Yeah.
And so I was like, if I just get that audition, then I'll prepare for it. So he's like, okay, I'll give you a chance.
That's actually really awesome, because I feel like I don't know, just anything that's like difficult or anything that you're kind of like scared of, like a lot of people that might be starting out, like that have just played like a few open mics or something, or have only played a few shows or something. Sometimes you just have to say yes, even when you feel like you're not ready. Like you just have to like have enough confidence to like know that you'll practice the material enough and just know it well enough to like, you kind of just need to say yes to stuff that you might be a little intimidated by, right?
Exactly. I feel like that's how you grow. Like the best opportunities I've gotten is stuff that I just took, like, oh my God, I don't know if I can do this, but I'm not going to say no.
Yeah. It pushes you to do it. It pushes you to prepare and get ready and get better. And I feel like there's been lots of times where it's going to feel like that, where you just have to say yes and just do it anyways. Yeah. Like I don't know. I just feel like there's something to that. I think there's like, because that's like the biggest, and then like you look at like the other side, if you say no, then it's just like, you're just wondering what could have happened or what opportunities could have came from that. So it's like, it's almost better just to say yes and do it anyways. Right. Like every time.
You don't learn anything being comfortable. You got to like push through.
Yep. Exactly. And that's cool that you did that in that instance. That was kind of like the first, like, I don't know, kind of push through and like.
Yeah, definitely.
And did he like try you out? How did it work?
So the tryout. So now what I had done, because I knew I wasn't a real bass player and I had no idea what I was doing, I had already started kind of writing down songs that he was doing. So like the wagon wheels and all that kind of stuff. I had never heard the song, but I'm like, all right, he's going to play that. These are his go-tos. So I learned like 20 songs on bass, just kind of roughly. And so I was like, all right, cool. I'm ready for this audition.
So you'd be serving at the restaurant.
Yeah, and
then you would be listening to him play, and you're just jotting down his whole set list.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's really smart, yeah.
I was like, all right, cool. So I won't be underprepared. I showed up there, and he plays none of those songs. He's like, let's just kind of jam for a second. Instantly, I started sweating on the inside. I'm like, yeah, okay. And so instantly, he knows I can't hang. And so he's starting to get a little frustrated. The drummer is pissed off as hell because he's trying to guide me through stuff, and I just have no idea what he's talking about. And so I was like, why don't we do one of the songs that you usually play? And so at that point, I started doing okay. I started finding a pocket because I knew those songs.
Yeah, that's smart.
And it was really Peter wanted me to learn Meet Virginia. And so it's kind of a melodic bass line, and not everyone kind of plays it a certain way. So I learned that note for note, and I think that's what kind of kept him like going when I was like bombing at first, because I at least played that song right.
Yeah.
And I think that was like my main audition.
And you got it.
And kind of.
Kind of, yeah.
He's like, well, you're nowhere near ready for a gig, because that was like a Wednesday, I think, and then we had a gig on Friday or Saturday. So he wanted me to be ready for that weekend. And he's like, man, I don't think you're going to be able to just follow along. I want to work with you, but we'll pick it up when it's like, when I slow down a little bit. But I didn't want to lose the gig, so I'm like, bro, give me one more chance tomorrow. I'll learn whatever. He's like, well, if you can learn these 50 songs by tomorrow, we'll consider it. So I went home and learned 50 songs, didn't sleep, gluing my fingers back together, watching bass players on YouTube, just like fucking, literally 24 hours. And then we got to the thing and I nailed it.
Dang.
And so he's like, all right, so we're going to do one more rehearsal tomorrow. Now I need you to learn these 50 songs.
Jesus.
And so I'm just inside just crying. I haven't slept in 2 days. I'm like, my fingers are glued back together. At least I was picking, so like, I was fine there. But yeah, so I learned the other 50, rehearsed the first 50, and then went back to audition, and then finally was fine.
Wow.
And so that's how I got it.
I feel like that's a more intense audition than it normally is, too.
It was, because also Ben Carey, fucking Lifehouse, was there too on my first one when I was bombing, and he's just sitting there like,
oh no, just so much pressure.
I'm like, hey, Lifehouse, one of my favorite bands, and this guy's looking at me like this. Okay, great.
Dang, that's crazy. And that's like a big thing too, is like when you're, I don't know, when you're joining a brand new band, it's like you have to learn their whole set.
Yeah.
What are some tips that helps you learn that quickly? Because obviously you did it in like a week. That's wild. Like 50 songs is like a 3 or 4 hour gig.
Yeah.
If anyone's wondering. And that's just a lot of songs to learn in 1 week. Like, how do you do that? Do you chart it out or what?
So then it's still kind of similar to what I do now. When you're faced with a big task like that, you just can't waste time. So you basically just run through the song. How I was doing it then was just, I was notating it myself. And so anytime there's a change, I stop the song, I chart it down. I pretty much go through every song like that once, and then I'll maybe go through it again fully. But if it's kind of simple enough, I'll just kind of go to the next one. You just got to keep it moving and kind of trust your charts as well.
So you kind of get like a good overview of it, like maybe like 80%. You're like, okay, I feel like okay with this.
Yeah.
And then you just keep going.
Pretty much. When I first started out, it was more tedious and learning every little note and doing that. And now that I've been doing it a minute, I can you get the vibe of where the song's going, and then you can put your own feel onto it. But yeah, no, if you're just starting out,
just do like almost like the simplest form.
Simplest form, and you can always build on it.
Yeah, that's really smart. And I like how you like were listening to his set list before you even had the audition. And I talk about that a lot too. Like, if there's a place that you want to play at, just go see who else is playing there already, and literally go and just sit there for their whole entire set and write down their whole set list and learn that set list. Maybe you're not going to play with that artist, but at least have, craft your set list so it sounds like someone who already plays there, so the venue's going to like that.
True. That's awesome advice. Yeah.
And you'll get so many you'll just get so many tips on just watching their set, like how they interact with the crowd, like what songs they're playing, like how they're presenting the songs, like how they're looping it, if they're playing in a band, if they're playing solo. You just get a lot of info just going to a venue that you want to play and just watching the artist that already plays there.
Yep.
Yeah. So with you play in a lot of bands though. Like it wasn't just
nowadays,
Peter, right? So like it started with Peter's band playing bass. And then I mean obviously like musicians play with everyone.
Yeah.
In Vegas.
Yeah, at that time, I totally was not on that at all. Because Peter was like, I kind of lied myself into this audition. I grinded on 100 songs, but I was still pretty green. Like I'm still using a pick. I'm still trying to figure out how to balance between guitar and drums and how to find that middle like bass pocket. So I was pretty green, and I was just working with Peter. So it wasn't until the Swoops that I really branched out of that.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So Peter was like your stomping grounds.
Yeah.
It was like boot camp.
Trial by fire, bro.
So you started playing with Peter a bunch, and then like what kind of gigs were you guys doing? Was it like all lounge stuff?
Yeah, for the most part. The first gig we had was a 5 o'clock somewhere bar. Do you know that one?
Yeah.
Dude, It was like this little shitty stage. No one's ever in this little area, but that was like one of the main ones we did. And then actually we started playing at PBR where I served at, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So those were our main gigs, and I'm trying to remember anything else from that era, but
yeah, maybe like when you like for people that like haven't played any gigs yet or are just starting to play gigs, it's like the gigs are going to be so different. Each one's going to be so different. Like one's going to have like a small, really, really small stage with like a really bad PA system or something, and then you'll go play like Red Rock Casino or something, and you'll have like a huge stage, line array system with like a really good sound guy and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how like different it is, right?
I know, right? You never know what to expect.
Yeah, and so, and you've done like corporate gigs as well, right? So you do like the lounge stuff and the corporate gig. How are those like different in your mind?
Big difference. Like on the corporate gigs, you know you're gonna make a lot more money than you usually would a lounge gig, and it's also usually like a shorter time too. So of course, like corporates are what you kind of strive for, but I mean lounge gigs are great as well. On a lounge gig, you can kind of focus more on tips and kind of focus more on working the crowd. Like you're there 3 to 4 hours, so you're kind of building and meeting people. On a corporate, you're just kind of a hired hand. You just kind of show up, do the job, and bounce. Like I've been on corporates where you're not allowed to talk to the people.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So like sometimes they're strict like that.
Yeah, sometimes just background music or and corporates are not as like consistent as lounge gigs.
No.
Like lounge gigs will be like you could do like 4 or 5 of those a week. You know, corporate gigs are more like sporadic.
Yeah, like once a month maybe.
Yeah.
Like where I'm at right now, but
yeah, definitely. And how's like the audience and the clientele different? Like obviously everyone like at the lounge gigs, everyone's kind of like trying to party and stuff.
Yeah. Well, you'd be surprised. Some of those corporates too. You never know because they always start off professional and then they have some drinks and then they get crazier than the lounge people that are in Vegas partying and like they came here to do that. It's a work event and you have people passing out on the stage. Why are you up here?
Yeah. So like one vacation from their 9 to 5 that they like
pretty much
just get to let loose.
Dude, I've seen so many people embarrass themselves in front of their whole company. It's hilarious.
Oh, really?
You feel bad. You're trying to help them, but people that don't drink and they're just woo.
Oh yeah.
Don't do that at work events, man.
Yeah. Has there been any what's like the craziest thing you've seen at like a lounge gig or like a corporate gig? Just people getting too drunk.
One of the craziest one happened when we were at the Swoops when the guy cut himself and was bleeding all over everyone's equipment and your helix and everything.
Oh yeah,
that was.
We talked about that when I interviewed Chaz.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit because I was like, dude, that was a wild. I think it was the same night that. So for anyone who didn't see the last episode, there was like we were playing at this beer house. And all these people came in and were like dancing and stuff. And then this German guy came in. He had just gotten in a fight and his bandage fell off on his hand and he bled.
That's what happened.
Yeah, he had just gotten in a fight and he wrapped his hand and then he was like super hammered and his bandage fell off and blood just went everywhere on the dance floor and all over our equipment.
Yeah.
So we had to stop the whole show. Clean it with we didn't clean it, but like they had to like clean it with like Clorox wipes and stuff like that.
Oh yeah,
like,
they don't play around with blood.
Yeah, it was wild. And then literally that same night, there was like this like 50-year-old lady just like passed out on the floor because she drank too much. Did you remember that?
No, but I mean, there was so many crazy times at Beer House like that. It kind of all gets looped together.
It kind of just becomes normal. You're just like,
this is happening.
She's just taking a nap on the restaurant floor.
She'll bounce back. Get her a shot. She needs a painkiller.
Yeah, isn't it crazy like all the requests that you get?
Dude, I don't mind the requests. I like that because then you get to hear like new music and you kind of get to keep your ear to the ground to what's popular. At the same time, don't get pissed off when we don't know it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I don't know every song that was created ever.
Do you guys typically do requests all night, or do you guys just like
It
play
depends
whatever?
on the gig. Kind of like if we're doing the karaoke stuff, of course, that's, you know, they're writing that down. When we do the Country Wednesday thing, that's all requests. And just we have Corey Brown on that. And his catalog is insane. He knows every song of all time. So he never gets stumped. And so those are more requests. But then there's other ones where there's like a set list and there's more what we play. And, you know, I think you got to be open to requests, though, because that's when you start bonding with the crowd and getting tips, too.
Yeah, it definitely helps a bunch just to do requests. I always talk about doing, like, you have to take requests, like, I think, to make really good money out here. And, like, and you have to know just every genre. It's crazy, like, you kind of, like, will guess what people are going to, like, request.
Yeah.
But I am always stumped. Like, there's always people coming up, and I'm like, I would have never thought you would have requested that.
True.
At all. Mm-hmm. It's wild. And, like, and so you guys play a lot of, like, what do you guys play?
Kind of depends on the gig.
Just like everything.
I did.
Right?
There was one week I did a funk gig on drums. I did a blues gig on bass. I did a heavy metal show on bass, and then I did 2 country gigs. So it's just you're kind of all over the fucking place. But that's what makes it fun. That's what kind of pushes you as well to learn other genres.
Yeah, that's what I feel like. That's why you're such a great musician, is because you can play all of that, and you're playing multiple instruments too. Like, I guess we can talk a little bit about that. Like, how does that help you play? Like, you playing drums, how does that help you play bass?
So I think the biggest thing is just the timing, and I think that's what helped me at first. It was just like getting that internal metronome from playing drums.
Yeah.
And then
definitely.
Once you start building on drums, and like as many great drummers as I've played with at this point, I'm always watching and always kind of looking at what they do. Because I love drums and I'm always curious about it. But just kind of studying them. And then once you kind of figure out their style and what they're getting into, then you kind of have a better understanding of what you're going to do on your bass line. So once you kind of hear what rhythm they're going to come with, then you can start making your bass line in your head.
Yeah, because the drums, for anyone who like hasn't played in a band, the drums and the bass are usually like a partnership.
Yeah, rhythm section, baby.
Yeah, it's like the drums, and then the bass has to mesh with the drums really well.
Yeah.
And they have to lock in, and then everything is kind of like the sprinkles on top, like the guitars and the vocals. Mm-hmm. And so your rhythm, so like you playing drums, your rhythm and your timing on bass got better. And you're able to like lock in better.
Night and day. And it's gotten to the point to where my metronome's good. So if we are playing with a drummer that's a little bit, like, not every drummer we play with is great at this level, but I mean, someone that's like struggling on some metronome, or like they don't know the song as well, I can kind of lead it in that direction as a bass player. So that kind of helps with the tempo of songs as well.
Do you mean like just mesh with them better?
It's kind of like speeding them up or slowing them down. Like if they start off a song and they're so slow, then you're like, all right, you start playing faster, hoping that they're listening, trying to. I feel like that's the best thing with bass players and drummers, when they start learning each other's styles and they're always listening. Mm-hmm. So that's when you start getting like the cooler parts of it. That's
like the nonverbal stuff that happens on stage that like maybe a lot of people don't realize is like exactly like you said, like if you want this song, if you've played the song with that band a bunch of times and you have like a new drummer and he doesn't know how you guys play it, then you can kind of like, you could speed him up or slow him down to the tempo that you guys normally play it at.
Yep. And if they're really good at listening like that, I can kind of, instead of doing like a crazy bass line, I'll kind of do like the hits on my bass so they can kind of pick up where to go as well.
Yeah, like where the kick would be, like you kind of do the downbeat or like...
Exactly.
You like imitate the drums on the bass. So
pretty much. You ghost note the snare and then play it. It's like boom.
That's pretty wild.
And then you can kind of guide it. That's why I like playing with Al Serrato. You ever played with him? He is always listening. Like, and then he'll adapt to your style like instantly. It's so crazy.
And that makes a great musician, because like, not only do you want to show up and play the music like properly, like how all the songs, but you want to, it's kind of like doing harmonies. Like you want to mesh with the other guys and kind of create this thing that's one, not just four separate people playing instruments.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. So let's talk about the Swoops a little bit. So we used to be in a cover band called the Swoops.
Yep.
We did lots of gigs.
Oh yeah, man. Like 2 years, we were playing 3 to 4 gigs a week.
Was it 2 years long?
I don't know.
That's wild.
My timelines on stuff is like horrible, so definitely don't like hold me to that. But
No, that sounds right.
It was
That
somewhere
sounds
in
right.
there, yeah.
Yeah, and we played a lot of lounge gigs, and it was cool, man. I feel like we gelled.
Yeah, man.
Like we all had a good time.
Dude, all right. So the Swoops, that was my first time outside of playing with Peter Love.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so I was already playing with Chaz at the time, Chaz was one of my favorite drummers. I'm like, he's the best in town. He's fucking dope. He's the only one I played with, but I was like, but Chaz was such an amazing drummer.
Mm-hmm.
And then he wanted to start another thing outside of Peter, and I was kind of curious about it. And he's like, all right, cool. I got this guy. He's been doing like cruise ships. He's an amazing vocalist, and he wants to get into this. I'm like, okay. And he's like, and then I don't know if you've heard of Miles V before, and I was like, Miles wants to get into this? I had just seen y'all with the Orange Feathers at House of Blues opening for Elvis Monroe.
Yeah.
And like Ben Carey and Brian Hopkins, they were kind of big deals. And so I saw you rocking House of Blues, which is my favorite venue, to like an all local crowd, and it was actually full. So, bro, I was looking at you like a fucking rock star. And you were kind of known around town as that, too. You were like the guitar player, bro.
Oh, crazy.
Orange
that was before
Feathers,
I met you.
Union Drifters. Yeah, you had no idea who I was.
Whoa, that's crazy to think about.
So, bro, going into that first, like, when we got together, the first rehearsal spot, I was so nervous, bro.
Really?
I think we had like a list of like 10 to 20 songs. Yeah. So, of course, like, you know, I prepared and I was going to be ready. I'm like, I'm not going to get embarrassed in front of all these people. Dude, I was shitting bricks for that.
You did great though, man. Like you like, I feel like that's how you've always done that really well. Is you've always been just prepared, and you've always just like, I can't remember any gig where you showed up and you just didn't have your stuff together.
Yeah, it just try to be professional.
I
knew I couldn't, like after bombing that first thing, when I couldn't really follow along the songs, I'm like, all right, I definitely need to be prepared.
Yeah.
So,
dude, yeah.
It's just kind of one of those things.
That was fun too, because then we got together at some studio and then we made like a promo video.
Yeah.
Like our first, you remember that?
I do.
At the UD Factory, we made like that first promo video that
I remember
we still
that. Well,
use.
we were already pretty tight by then, right?
Yeah.
Like we had already been playing shows, but that was fun. Like that first trying everyone out kind of period. We were doing 3-part harmonies that first practice, right? Last Dance with Mary Jane.
Yeah.
That was my favorite part about the Swoops is like we all gelled like instantly.
Yeah, 3-part harmonies you can't do, like you don't see that a lot. It's pretty rare, I think. In a lot of like bands, I don't know. Cuz it's just difficult to figure out too, like I don't know. You guys are better at harmonies than I am because
you always say that, but you're such a liar.
I would always sing the melody. Like Jimmy was like the main singer for the band, but like I would sing like 4 or 5 songs probably, and then on all the songs that I would sing, they would stack up on top of me and do the harmonies. So we'd had 3-part, and it was like it sounded like the Eagles or something. It was wild.
That's what I always liked comparing it to.
Yeah, that was super fun, and we would play like. We had a residency at like a few spots.
Yeah, and a bunch of places on the Strip.
We would play like a lot of like 90s stuff, I feel like.
Yeah, I feel like we lived more in the 90s thing. I think
90s,
I think we had a country set, like when we were playing Virgil's or like so like we had a couple things, but yeah, probably mostly 90s.
Yeah, we did.
More rock vibe.
Yeah, 90s, 2000s, and country. I feel like we really nailed that. Yeah. And Jimmy knew like, since Jimmy was on the cruise ships, he knows like so many songs. He knew like
different styles, everything.
He was from Bakersfield, so it was like he knew a lot of country stuff.
Yeah.
And I never really. What's your take on the country genre?
Was
that
I had to
hard
grow
to get
into it?
That's the same for me. Honestly, same for me. But then it's like you kind of like it after a little bit.
Dude, once you start kind of understanding it, it's like any genre. When you first hear the genre, everything sounds the same. And then once you start actually listening to it and getting used to the different artists, then you start appreciating it and doing it more. So like I hated country. Like I'm from the South. Same. I got tortured with like fucking Shania Twain and Faith Hill when I was little. And like country. I did like Garth Brooks. That's always been my favorite.
And then you start playing it, and you're like, oh, these are like great songs, or like you
Mhm.
just start to get familiar with it, and then you start liking it. Like,
It was I feel like playing with Jimmy because he was such a great vocalist. Like I
yeah,
remember when Tennessee Whiskey, of course, but it's a country song, but it kind of doesn't have a country vibe to it.
yeah,
I feel like when Jimmy did a song called "Wrecking Ball" by Eric Church, there was something he was hidden in his voice, and I'm like, not only are the lyrics great in this, like it
yeah,
kind of made me appreciate it. When you have a good singer singing it with a passion, it kind of makes you like it better.
yeah. It's country music is such. I didn't realize like how many people love country music. Like it's such a big fan base. Like I get it requested all the time. I will play it every single gig that I play. I will play it country.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, like people will. Even last night I was playing a gig, and there was this couple at this table, and I was like, I don't even think they listen to country. It was like definitely not a country vibe at this lounge, and I was like, oh, what do you guys want to listen to? And she was like, oh, country music, and she listed all these country songs. I was like, oh wow, it's so crazy.
Get your list out. You're writing it down. I don't know that one. But
Yeah, yeah, it's so wild. And so I feel like we did that pretty well because Jimmy was like, and you already knew all the country songs from playing with Peter.
Yep, pretty much.
Dang, that's super cool.
But yeah, I feel like that's the main thing that got me into country is like just having a strong vocalist. When you can really appreciate and see the talent in it, it's like, okay, yeah.
Yeah, because country always has those little riffs.
Mm.
You notice that? Like it has like those little like I don't know. They just have like certain roles in country where like teaches you like how like soul or R&B will have like they'll have like
Yeah.
just certain runs that they do. Country has that in there, and I'm like, oh wow, it's like not that easy to sing.
Bro, that's exactly right. And it was Jimmy that kind of made me realize that.
Yeah, he's wild. Yeah.
I was like, oh, country singer. And then he sings one thing. I'm like, oh. And his knowledge of how we did the roles and how we broke it down, he was so smart on it. It's like, dang, man.
Yeah, that was super fun.
Oh,
We gotta play some gigs again. We'll have to get the band back together and play some gigs.
That'd be
some
awesome.
Gigs, right?
Dude, to do a swoop shake. Hey.
Out of all like the experience that you've had in like, because you've been gigging how long now?
I don't want to say the exact time because I don't want to say my age and shit, but
Yeah.
I'll say at least 15 years. Yeah.
Dang. So okay. So after 15 years, like, what advice, if you were talking to like your younger self that was like just starting out, what advice would you give that person, your younger self?
Man, I thought about that a lot. I feel like it's more it was kind of the same thing I was doing. It's just you really got to focus on one, your connections, and two, having like a practice regimen, and then staying consistent on playing every single day, and then challenging yourself. Like it took a lot of me like taking gigs I didn't think I could do to push me out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
I wish I would have been doing that earlier and growing. You know.
Yeah, 100%. I think.
And also connections. That's the biggest thing in the music industry. It seems like.
Yeah. What's your take on like network?
Networking. I think when you were saying earlier, when you're saying like if you find a venue you like, go there, find the set list, and do that. I think it's kind of more along that like those lines, like meeting the bands that are playing at the venues you want. It's like if you see that. Most of the time when people come up and talk to you, like just they're willing to share. So if you're asking questions, I think I'm kind of going in circles here. But
No, that was good. Right.
No.
So like if you're a musician that like wants to start gigging, and you see some bands that you like, or you have a few venues in your city that you would want to play at, you're just saying like kind of just go and hang out there.
Yeah, just building the connections and showing your face and being out there. And it's weird. There's a thin line between like networking and then actually like just being friends. Like you meet some really cool people and you just keep up with them, and then sometimes cool shit happens. I feel like that's the best part of like networking is when it's more of like a friendship than it is like, hey man, can you do this for me? Because
right.
you know. So I think that's the biggest thing is just establishing connections and.
So you lean more towards like just hanging out, being friends with them, and then obviously they're gonna know that you play bass or that you're in the music scene.
Mhm.
And so if anything comes up, if a gig comes up where they need like a bass player or something, you'd be the first call.
Yeah, I mean,
most likely.
you'd be surprised how many times I just met someone in passing, and it was just, hey, I need a bass player last second, and it's just, and that's another thing is like not turning down opportunities. Like if I'm available and I'm offered an opportunity, like I'm always gonna do that, very least to keep that connection because it's so important.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that's huge. And I feel like that's kind of overlooked too, is that like literally just going to the places where music's happening. I know that sounds so like simple, but it's like there's literally so much, like even just going to your local open mic and just performing and meeting everyone there and getting their contact or at least their socials, like their Instagram or something. That's such like a huge thing. Like just so many opportunities can come from that, let alone going to like another venue where a live band is playing and then you just hang out, you write down their whole set, you meet the band after, and at least they know who you are and maybe that you play an instrument, and then you might get a chance to play with them in the future. Like who knows? Like it's so, I feel like it's just so overlooked, like just going out and like meeting people.
Dude,
It's
for
kind of
sure.
crazy.
You can't do any, like sitting at home, you're not gonna make connections. You're not gonna be getting gigs.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you want to sit home and practice, but then part of your day should also be going out to music venues and music spots and shows and networking. I feel like that's so important. I feel like you've always been really good at that.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah. And you got to be kind of like,
No, y'all too.
yeah, like
Definitely.
you've always been like really cool with everyone and just kind of, nice, and you're always like joking and like and having a good time. And I feel like a lot of people, when you first network with someone or when you first meet someone, they don't want to be like super serious and talk about business.
Nah.
They like just want to, I don't know, they just want to chat or just not talk about serious business
I know,
stuff.
especially at a gig too. Like you just worked your ass off to practice. You just did all this stuff, and now you want to get off stage and let loose and relax. Like you don't want to run up to them and like, "How did you get this gig? Do you need a drummer?"
Right.
I don't want to mention names, but there's a couple of those out here.
Yeah. And it's a slow relationship build, and that's for like any type of networking. Like, yeah.
I feel like it's not expecting something out of someone. It's like you're building the connection. Like meeting someone as a human, and then if they're talented, if they fall into another project and you get to work together, that's awesome.
Yeah, it would be crazy to like look back on all the opportunities that you've had throughout the last 15 years and just to mark out the ones that are just from like you meeting random people at gigs.
Dude, it's crazy.
Right? It would be like astonishing, I think. Yeah. That's super cool. So let's talk a little bit about original bands versus cover bands, because you've had a couple original projects.
Yeah.
So it was Smokescreen Visuals, and then what was your other original projects? You've had a couple, right?
So I started off when I was 14. We were Dark Spade, which is the worst name ever. I just like the spade and the shape of the card. That's where I got my little tattoo right there.
Okay.
16. I'm like, yeah, Dark Spade. We're cool. And then we went to then I did a pop thing that was I Divide, and I was just trying to kind of let go of the heavier stuff a little bit. And then my first big band I got into was First Class Trash. And then I did that, and then I went to Smokescreen Visuals. And then Smokescreen was fun because in First Class Trash it was pretty just like my favorite musician of all time and me learning from him, and he was fucking awesome. He taught me how to write, produce, perform, everything.
Dang.
So I was more of like, he was my mentor, and I was just kind of in that band, just, learning. And when it came to Smokescreen Visuals, it was more of like a partnership with all of us. And then I could write and I could really have more power, and it was fun that way.
Yeah. And for you playing like, so you kind of done the same thing as like, I feel like a lot of artists and musicians do this too, is where they'll have an original project and they'll also do covers on the side. There's a lot of like artists out here in Vegas that do that. How do you kind of like divide the two?
I feel like a lot of the people out here will do the covers that kind of pay the bills and then also put money towards the original projects, because it's incredibly hard to make music out here with like just doing originals.
Yeah.
So you kind of got to do the covers, and then also running a band is very expensive when you're really trying to do it on a big level. So you need a form of income. The covers are nice because you're learning and you're still playing music. But I feel like a lot of us do that so we can do our original stuff. But I don't know if I'm alone in that, but
No, I think that's totally right. Yeah, I was talking to Chastity and Steven about that too. Because, I mean, even they'll have like separate band names. Like they'll have a band name for their covers set, and then they'll have just a separate band name for their original stuff. And just keeping it separate and like inviting not the same people to each show. Like,
yeah, that gets tricky too.
Yeah.
When you have like a cover band and then also an originals. Yeah.
Because like you're playing more in the cover band usually. So you don't want to invite all the people that would go to your original show to all your cover gigs all the time.
Yeah, exactly. It's more valuable to have them at the originals show because there are things like you have to sell this amount of tickets to play here, and it becomes like a stressful thing. With covers, it's just you're on the strip. It's like anyone can wander in there. So
yeah, right. Like, more of a built-in audience, kind of.
Like, don't come see me at 5 o'clock Summer Bar. Like, please don't.
And how was it? Maybe we'll touch on that a little bit. Like playing an original show at a venue. How was that different from like the cover gigs? Like you said, you had to sell tickets and stuff.
Yeah, with the original shows, it's a process, man.
Yeah, I feel like you guys did it well. Like at Taverna, and like there was a couple spots that like, yeah. Talk a little bit about it.
I think it was doing original shows is like one, it's pretty much making friends with promoters, and sometimes they'll bounce ideas off of you of what bands you'll click with. And of course, I'm always trying to bring in people that I play with in the scene. So that's always more fun when we kind of collab on our original stuff. But the hardest thing is you have to sell about 30 tickets at least to have a serious like original gig.
Okay,
so 30 tickets as a band. So that's where that becomes more important. But then it becomes like so stressful because you're like, oh my God, if I don't get people here, I'm not going to get rebooked.
Yeah. So how much are tickets usually? What would you say, like ballpark?
Anywhere from like 10 to 20.
Okay.
Probably like, I've done a couple of House of Blues where it's like 25, but then usually you're playing with a bigger band, so it's easier to sell people into coming. But
okay. So like $300 to like $700 or something you have to sell in tickets.
Yeah.
And that's kind of crazy to think about.
It's been like that since I was 14, bro. Like I was begging everyone at my school, like, please. And then you're the only one in the band selling tickets. Like, what the hell is going on here, guys? Come on, man.
And that's cool too, because then you play, you get your friends and some new fans out of those shows, but then you also can film the show. You get a lot of great content out of it. Yeah, they're a lot different than the cover gigs. Yeah, it is a lot different. Like, I don't know. You want to get more people that are in like the local music scene. Like you kind of want to, and there's always kind of like a trend thing that's going on or something, or like in the genre. I mean.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Like there's always something kind of happening. Like, I don't know. Like in the early 2000s was all the pop punk stuff.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what's going on now. Like maybe more of like the indie stuff, or like maybe
the indie stuff's kind of dominant. Yeah.
The house music stuff's really dominant here.
True, EDM in Vegas is always going to be huge.
Yeah.
So the DJing and stuff, but I mean, yeah, indie and real kind of music too is coming back, and I do like that. Even rock is starting to have like a little bit of life again. Like there's some people coming up. Ronnie Radke just did a song with Tech Nine. I'm like,
it's wild,
right?
Yeah.
Who would have ever thought those two Escape the Fate and
yeah,
Tech Nine?
That's wild.
But yeah, no, it's definitely important to like know your niches. And I think that's a big thing when you're doing your originals. Is kind of, I guess niche is kind of like a bad word for it, but like kind of knowing your style and what your style blends with. Like on Smokescreen, when we were playing with a band that was in our similar style, we all thrived, we all killed. When we went and played with two rock bands that were like really heavy and screaming, it's like, yeah, we kind of didn't fit in on that gig. It's like I was trying to throw stick tricks and shit, but I don't think we were gonna compete with raw. If I just blew out your mic there, sorry, bro.
No, you're good. You're good. It's fine. So just partnering up with like the right bands is a big deal too.
Oh, most definitely.
And that's kind of like a hard thing too. Is like sometimes in your city there might not even be bands that are like similar to you.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to like, because it's like when you play an original show, the show's gonna be like 3 hours, so you're gonna fill up maybe 1 hour. So you need at least like one or two opening bands, and to find bands that like kind of mesh with your music, but then will also bring a different audience. So all the audience members can see each band, like kind of cross pollinate the audiences a little bit. It's not easy to do, but it's great though. I mean, like, I don't know how many times I've just went to go see my friend's band, and then the other two bands were really cool, and then we ended up meeting them, and then doing gigs with them later or something.
Yeah, man. The Michael Richter thing.
Yeah,
that was dope. He just opened for us on one gig, and then we just kept in contact with them. And now I'm seeing you guys play a couple years later. Like, God damn, this is crazy.
Yeah, I guess we didn't even talk about that. So I had an original band. Well, I still do. We just haven't played a show in a long time.
What's it called again? I don't.
Just the Miles V band, But Jay plays bass, and we did like a bunch of shows, just original shows. Like, it's kind of like rock music, indie rock stuff. And yeah, it's been cool. Like, yeah, one of our buddies, Michael Richter, who I play lead guitar for now, he opened up for our band in a few shows. And then, I don't know, you just get connected in like such interesting ways. It like always happens that way.
For real. And one of the bands that was right before you, I knew the drummer of just through like cover gigs. And then I got to meet his band because of that as well. It's like every time you go out to these shows, you're meeting so many talented people.
Right.
And it's just, I don't know, that's kind of the whole point of it.
Yeah. And I can't like emphasize that enough. Like, even when we first met Ben Carey in Temecula, California.
Oh, you met him in Cali?
Yeah, we literally were just at an open mic at this restaurant. And you just never know who you're going to meet. True. Like, you just never know who you're going to meet. And literally one person that you meet could like change your life. And I know that sounds kind of cheesy, but it's kind of true. Like, you have no idea. I remember we were playing some gig. I forgot where it was, but it was some like outdoor, like big stage and stuff like that. And like a few of the guys that just like won American Idol were there.
Oh shit.
Like, and we were opening up for them, and so we got to meet them backstage and stuff. It's like, and all their managers were there, and like they got to see us play. And so it's like, you just never know who you're gonna meet, honestly. Like, it's so, networking is such a big thing, and I think you've always been really good at that.
Oh, huge thing. Did you see the Vince Vaughn thing?
No, what is that?
We were playing at Barbershop. It was like our country night with Corey, but a well-known comedian came up to the stage. I was the only one that knew who he was. I was a huge fan, so I was already kind of fangirling or whatever. And so I got to meet this comedian, and he was kind of seeing if he could jump on stage like after our set. And so that's definitely not my call. I just play bass in the band, but I'm trying to move heaven and earth to fucking get him on stage afterwards because I'm a big fan. Yeah. And so they're like, all right, they're kind of on the no side of it, but we still got to get through the gig. And then Vince Vaughn walks in, and it's like, he's pretty tall. You see him walk in, you're like, oh my God, I'm actually a big fan of him too. But he starts getting too much attention and leaves. And so we finish our gig. And then that comedian came up to me again. He's like, can we get on stage? I'm like, please, yes. But the sound guy had to work early, and then like no one else was really into it. I'm like, guys, you don't understand. This guy is fucking awesome. We got to get him up here. Yeah. And so he finally lets it slide. He's like, Vince Vaughn came with me. He wants to jump on stage with us.
Oh, crazy.
And so all of a sudden, Vince Vaughn walks back in, and now he's right here with me on stage. I'm like, man, if we had told that guy no, that we would have never had that experience. That's crazy. You never know what's going to happen.
That's so true.
We were singing Chattahoochee with Vince Vaughn on stage. I'm not stoked it's Chattahoochee, but it's Vaughn.
Yeah, that's so crazy. That happens a lot. Obviously, it depends like what city you're in. Like in Vegas, there's a lot of celebrities running through. So yeah, it's so random. Like we were at Tivoli Village over here, nice, just at a Mexican restaurant, and all of a sudden, what's his name, Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak
What the fuck?
was doing a DJ set outside, like totally like unannounced DJ set. Yeah.
Dude, what?
And they were just chilling and just doing a DJ set, and like I don't know if it was like after their like show or something, but like literally it was just outside of the Mexican restaurant. I was like, yo, what is going on? It was crazy. And this is like I'm like here in like 5 feet, it's like Anderson .Paak just doing a DJ set. It was
That's so crazy.
wild.
You never know what's gonna happen in Vegas. That's what's kind of makes the gigs a little bit more fun too. You're like, all right, who's gonna show up?
Yeah, I've seen more celebrities here than anywhere else in my life. Like I saw Conor McGregor driving his Lamborghini down Rainbow.
I saw him on the freeway. It's a loud car. It's bright green. Like.
Okay, so what are you up to now? What do you got going right now?
So I'm still doing some of the covers and trying to get into corporates, but my main thing I'm trying to transition to is just production. Ever since the First Class Trash stuff, and then SSV, I was doing all the pre tracks before we took it into the studio, and I've always been interested in that. So I'm starting to kind of go that way. I'm starting off with rap beats right now. So that's kind of more like my roots and something I'm comfortable with. And so I'm going to start with doing that and leasing kind of rap beats. And then I'll eventually work my way up to pop and then rock and then hopefully just be a producer.
Yeah, for everyone who's like listening that doesn't know exactly what production means, how would you describe it?
So basically recording the song for the artists. I guess when you're the producer, you're recording the guitars, bass, and drums for the artist. And you're putting in strings, you're putting in other sounds, and you're kind of putting it together. Like a band can come in with a very like rough idea, like a verse and a chorus maybe, and then sometimes as a producer, it's your job to kind of shape that into like a full song. Like how many times have like our singers come in and been like, I kind of like this melody, and so when you have the power of a producer and they kind of trust your writing, you kind of get a guitar, and then you can kind of shape a song out of a little melody. And so it doesn't always have to be that way, but that's kind of the stuff that makes me excited to do it. The writing aspect, I guess.
Yeah, you're kind of like someone will come in with the song, and then you're kind of like adding instruments to emphasize everything. Kind of like you're building off of like their very like raw song. Yeah. And production is like it's super fun because it's kind of like the other side of like songwriting is its own thing, but then like production is like kind of like the soundscapes. Yeah. It's like adding synths and then like figuring out like what drum tones to get and like. Yeah. And so you've been getting into like, you've been creating a lot of beats and stuff. Yeah.
I wanted to start with beats so I could really get like big 808s and big kicks, like the rhythm section.
Yeah, that's your go-to.
That's my go-to. So I was like, I'm going to start there, and then we'll start building. But the goal is to pretty much, if I can lease my beats online and start getting some bigger production projects. I'm also getting into
that's cool.
Kind of working like on movies, commercials, and kind of behind-the-scenes work with that as well.
Doing more like sync music for commercials? Or what do you mean?
Oh, man, that would be a goal, is to get my stuff licensed in commercials, which is definitely something like that. But I've actually been like, one of my friends is a videographer, and so they get booked a bunch of gigs around town, just like filming commercials, movies, music videos, and they're actually filming. And so I've been kind of getting into that side as well. Yeah. Like, I'm kind of just a hired hand right now, just kind of learning, but seeing how to direct and how to get your camera angles, how to get your lighting, how to kind of do all the behind the scenes work of it. So I'm starting to kind of get into that. And also I like doing it's like Foley, like when you put the effects into the actual like video. Oh yeah. So like if you're watching a commercial and like you see someone throw a ball or something and you hear the spiral coming off of the ball, that's like an added sound effect that you're doing. And so that's something I'm kind of interested in too.
Yeah, so that's cool.
Kind of the direction I'm going.
Yeah, you don't ever really think about that stuff when you watch like commercials or anything.
Exactly. I'm like, it's crazy. Like even down to the footsteps, like the mic doesn't really get a clean, like you hear someone walking in a movie and it's very quiet. Like you're probably not picking that up from the boom mic. That's probably a poor guy like me that's trying to time the footsteps, so it sounds real. But yeah, so I'm trying to get into that as well.
That's super cool. And that's super important too when you're making like, if your original band has like a music video, or if you're trying to do like a promo video or something like that, all that video editing and all of that stuff comes in handy.
Yeah, it's very valuable, especially now we're social media era.
Yeah.
Like even just learning the TikTok editing and doing all those kind of things, like totally up my game on it.
Yeah, that's a great point too, is that if you guys need to make a promo video, or if you guys are trying to edit content, I would use TikTok has a great platform that you can do a bunch of stuff, but then also CapCut.
That's what I use.
Yeah, CapCut is like awesome. It's very similar to like Final Cut, but
Yeah,
CapCut is like, yeah, if you guys need to make a promo video or edit some content, I'd definitely use CapCut.
yeah.
It's awesome. That's what I use too. So where can people find you?
jchimusic.com is where I'm leasing my beats and doing my production. It's also where I got all my commercials I worked on and different things like that.
Okay.
Like if you're trying to hire a Foley artist.
There it is.
But jchimusic, CHE.
Okay. So JCHE Music.
Yeah.
Cool.
I got it because I'm a big Alice in Wonderland fan and the Cheshire Cat.
Oh, okay, yeah, I was gonna ask you about that. I was like, I was trying to find you on Instagram. I was like, how can I not search his name anymore?
That, bro. It's so funny how like you have a handle for years and then you change it and no one can find you anymore.
Dude, I was like, did I like unfollow him accidentally? Like, what happened?
I see how it is.
Right on, man. Well, thanks for being here, dude. Woo. Out.
Yeah.